Later, over the next hour, you're invited to join us on a journey of inspiration. This story is a story about belief. It's about love. But most of all, this is a story about the belief in a simple idea. What you see behind me looks like just another monument we find in many parts around Mzansi. We know that societies like to commemorate important events, accomplishments, and people as a means to remember for times to come. In this country, there are a lot of monuments that we all seem to know. The Hector Peterson Memorial, the Apartheid Museum on Constitution Hill, the Fort Draken Monument, and a few others. This monument is different. It is not a monument to a specific achievement, event, or person. No. This monument is a dedication by one man to an idea, a simple idea, the idea of peace.
Our province had been teared apart by political violence in the past, and there was a call from the rural communities that we should install the peace pillar in all the areas.
A number of peace monuments are being set up in the whole of KwaZulu-Natal, different towns. There are also initiatives from non-governmental groups.
And now that we are moving towards peace and stability in the country, and mainly in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, where we see the communities requesting for peace. And for me to actually embrace this, it's very important.
The Peace Pillar project was initiated by humanitarian and philanthropist Ishwar Ramlutchman 3 years ago as a dedication to his spiritual leader in South Africa, Sri Swami Sahajananda. This is ultimately a monument of faith that pays tribute to the teachings of the founder of the Divine Life Society, Swami Sivananda, who in the early part of the 20th century interpreted the millennia-old teachings of the Hindu faith. The Peace Pillar, however, is fashioned to be transparent to all people and does not exclude other faiths and cultures. It is a homogenized icon that promotes a universal ideology.
Those inscriptions that you read on the pillar are so universal that no spiritual person can reject any part of it. It is completely acceptable.
And I think that's really what's quite innovative about it, that it's across the spectrum, it's totally non-denominational, it's multilingual in the pillars. And I think it's something which focuses people's minds. And as I said earlier, I think peace is what is needed, and I think that's a very noble initiative.
The Peace Pillar, as you know, has got a universal prayer which all religions can identify with. It espouse a set of values which I think we should all live our lives by, irrespective of your religion. And of course a set of values that as a city who represents everyone in the city should try and live by as well.
Can you imagine the effect this would have on communities for now, for the next 10 years, and for the next 100 years?
We might not say that we are totally unified. We need to build on it. Nothing can be cast in concrete. We are human beings. We are entitled to our opinions and various beliefs, but we must not compromise non-violence and peace.
The province of Natal was one that was hard fought for in the history of South Africa. It was a place that offered colonial settlers the promise of vast coastlines to conduct trade. The coast offered prime real estates in the trade routes to the east, and particularly the spice routes. Natal thus saw the influx of Dutch and English settlers. It was inevitable that the native Zulu inhabitants would fight for the land they had inhabited for more than 800 years prior. The 19th century staged some of the most iconic battles in global colonial history. Think Isandlwana and Blood River. But it was one specific event that led to racial polarization in South Africa. creating the historical basis for a century and a half of institutionalized separation.
Right, this is Umgungundlovu. It was the headquarters of King Dingaan, and he established it in 1829. And then Piet Retief came here for the first time in 1836 to ask King Dingaan for land, and the king agreed. He said he would give him land between the Tugela and the Ntombuna in the south, on condition that he retrieve 4,000 head of cattle from Sigonyela. And he also said to Piet Retief that he should bring Sigonyela here. Piet Retief went away, he brought back the 4,000 cattle, but he didn't bring back Sigonyela. Now the king was very outraged, and he said to him, you know, why didn't you bring him? And then Piet Retief pointed to his hair and he said, you know, you must remember I've got grey hairs, I'm not a fool. I know what would have happened, you would have had him killed. The king invited him with his followers into Umgungundlovu. They were asked to leave the horses and the guns outside, which they were left at the gate. And the dancing became ever more ominous, and then all of a sudden he got up and said, Bulalane abatagate, kill the wizards. They were then dragged to Komatiwane, where they were put to death. An event which had enormous repercussions for South African history and bedeviled race relations for centuries. He then sent his regiments out, and the next day, and they put about 600 Boer women and children to death. But it led to racial polarization, and for many, many years there were very right-wing celebrations here. So it served as a focal point for, I think, expressing hatred and feelings of distrust and so on, which I think really caused a lot of problems in our country.
Fast forward 150 years or so, and a province unravels within the turmoil of the dying gasps of apartheid. This struggle became ever more violent in the late 80s and early 90s. It was a period where the apartheid government, hard-pressed to find solutions to an increasing popular revolt, unleashed third force activity in South Africa. The supply of weapons to particular factions in the attempt to destabilize and derail unity amongst the United Democratic Front had a calamitous effect on the province. 20,000 South Africans lost their lives in townships like Richmond, Mpumalanga and Greytown. It proved the idiom that it's always darkest before dawn very true.
In the 1980s, KwaZulu-Natal was really a war zone. As you know, over 20,000 people lost their lives in the conflict, essentially between the forces that represented the National Party and the forces of conservatism, and those that represented the need for change, for democracy and for transformation.
It wasn't just violence. There were people's lives that were being destroyed. So we kind of got this picture of despair, and we'd get the calls from the people sometimes while it was happening. But what struck me most about the story, and I remember putting this in my story, was the women carrying mattresses that were full of bullet holes and bloodstained to the nearby river, washing it and then bringing it back, carrying it on their heads and bringing it back.
The last letter that Mr. Mandela wrote to me in 1989 was a letter where he was really pained by the extent to which we as black people were killing each other.
In the early 90s, during the negotiation in South Africa, when the jockeying for political space became even sharper, we saw increased levels of violence, and that was when many of us decided that it was time to actually try to mediate these conflicts.
And because there had been so much conflict and even the low intensity civil war that took place between members of the ANC and the UDF against members of my party in Carter, where it was decided that in the interim constitution, any party, as far as the national government is concerned, that had more than 5% had a seat in the cabinet. And these were efforts to try and bring about reconciliation. In KwaZulu, where my party was in charge, we also invited members of the ANC, including Mr. Zuma, who became the MEC for Economic Affairs, to work with us in an effort to try and bring about reconciliation and peace. Because, as you know, more than 20,000 black people were killed, right across the parties because of the conflict that took place at that time. In 1999, this arrangement expired when the permanent constitution came into operation. But still, Mr. Mabheka still invited me to his office and said he still wanted us to work together to try and consolidate reconciliation.
The call to humanity and the need for us to devote ourselves in service to the people must always be the highest call that we can respond to.
People want peace. They want peace and stability simply because it's a priority. It's like the air we breathe. We cannot afford this province to sink back into those dark days.
So how does one man's faith lead to a devotion to the idea of peace? This pillar is truly amazing. There's reference to all religions, our struggle history, and the idea of inner peace through meditation, all inscribed on solid marble weighing more than 4 tons. In a world where we're all trying to assert our difference and our individuality, this pillar seems to want to bring us all together. It seems to point to the idea of Ubuntu. Like a rock on a slippery slope, it was this idea of togetherness that allowed the Peace Pillar project to gain momentum and to gather support from the highest members of our society. But is there something really unique about the people of KwaZulu-Natal? Well, let's check out this multifaceted province. One of the idiosyncrasies of KZN has been the settlement of the area by very distinct cultures. Not only are they indigenous Zulu and Siswati, but the 19th century influx of Indian laborers to work the sugarcane plantations for English landowners lent a particular slant to the flavor of the province.
This country has been formed by the unity of diverse people, and that's what the logo of this country says. It says the unity of diverse people, and that unity of diverse people is the virtue that this country has, which is very different from countries where people fight simply because they are different. Here we're united though we're different, and that being different means everybody's got a value, everybody must be accorded their space, and that's what our constitution is all about. It's a unique experiment in the world.
One of the interesting things that I still remember when we were growing up is that there wasn't much gap in the society. I mean, we were all equal. I think that was the striking feature about when we grew up. I think those that had a lot, they were far and few, but other than that, we were all the same. And we all sort of like also tended to sort of work together, take care of each other. Life was very simple, and as a result, we had very few social pressures. One of the things that was very striking at Nanda was the integration of the Indian community and the Africans. I think there was a lot of integration.
The main thing is that we kept the spirit of culture going because there was the opportunity that was available at that time.
And people were fairly warm as well, and people cared for each other as neighbors. We respected all the neighbors. KwaZulu-Natal has got a very strong heritage dating back many years, because even if you were to even take the whole notion of Natal, how it came into being, it's part of your heritage. The Zulus, it's part of our heritage. The Indians arriving here, the British arriving here.
We have, for example, the hall, where in the whole slogan of Amandla Ngawe, it was first pronounced in a meeting attended by Madiba. We have a meeting where Madiba was last to address during the days of his freedom. We also have a site where Madiba was captured. It's all around, in Pietermaritzburg. And we've also had a very strong presence of national leaders in this province who were part of the liberations. The first president of the African National Congress, Dr. Dube, who was here, the first Nobel Prize laureate who was in here, the leaders of the trade unions who were here, the Monte Naika, one of the most influential leaders coming from the Indian community during those days, as well as a number of traditional leaders, Amakosi, who were part of this whole movement forward.
Traditionally, obviously, KZN has been known as a very, when we talk about warmth, we don't talk about the weather as such, but we talk about everything and the people, the welcoming people.
From the point of view of the province of KwaZulu-Natal, there must come a time when somebody walks around the province of KwaZulu-Natal, they'll get a window view of what South Africa is like and how it has evolved to be what it is today.
With the settlement of the English, Afrikaner and Indian in the province came a multitude of religious beliefs. The Indian population brought with it Hinduism, Islam, Sikh, Buddhist, and a multitude of subsects of the Indian faiths. Add to the mix the Indian Catholic settlers who sought business opportunities within the province, and within the space of 20 years, the area transformed from predominantly Protestant English to a landscape of temples, mosques, and churches. The missionary movement began in the 19th century, also resulted in the formation of one of Africa's largest church movements, the Shembe. This variety in belief might have been a recipe for conflict, but Natal proved to be the standard for tolerance.
I've looked at this beautiful pillar, and the first thing that was screaming to me was what is written on it. Number one, the universal prayer, which is a beautiful prayer, but also it is inscribed with words from the different religions. And that's something that is very peculiar to us in South Africa, because unlike in other countries where there are people that are dying because of religious fights, we have an opportunity to have all religious groupings standing together, speaking with one voice, fighting for peace, which is something that we need to thank God for.
The Hindu faith, just to clarify, is a misnomer because it's named after the people who lived on the river Sindhu. But in reality, we would call that the Sanatan, means all eternity. This knowledge existed. What Swami Sivananda did was he brought out the very essence of that, where we as human beings understand that we are an essential part of the entire universe without separation, that we are in oneness with everything that exists. We are in oneness with those who are even less fortunate than us, and that there should be a feeling of oneness with those who need our assistance in any form.
Islam is a religion of tolerance. When you look at the word Islam itself, is from the word salam, and salam means peace. So peace comes with tolerance. We have to tolerate others, whether we share the same view or not.
Because we are religious leaders, irrespective of religion, irrespective of belief, peace has got nothing to do with religion. Peace has got nothing to do with color. Peace has got to do something with the inner being, for mankind.
When you do things for the less privileged, and when you do things for those in pain and those who are suffering, you feel that is yourself, that you are helping.
What is very, very important in trying to come up with a very peaceful society where people will live side by side with one another is for us not to be judgmental. If I'm a Muslim, Islam is calling me not to be judgmental. I should be able to deal with people, and Islam even made it very clear that we share something called humanity before we are Muslims.
We should live in such a way that we should not disturb the happiness of the other person. So the basic ethics is that I shall not earn my happiness by disturbing the other person's happiness. So I will not deprive your happiness to make myself happy. So I will share my happiness with you. And in fact, I will make you happy so that I become happy.
I believe peace is not around you, it is inside of you. And that is why I'm so passionate about preaching about peace.
There is a verse in the Quran where Almighty Allah even said, if a non-Muslim or someone who is not a Muslim, he doesn't believe in the prophecy of Prophet Muhammad, comes to you, you should deal with him in a proper way, in a proper manner, to such an extent that if you deal with him in a proper way, in a proper manner, Almighty Allah promise you with a great reward and great benedictions in your life.
These peace pillars, and I know that's the intention, is to try and ensure that different communities, of the like of religious communities, endeavour to live together in harmony. And again, to me, that's a very significant symbol of the efforts of a region to bring about harmony and peace. And that is obviously critically important.
In South Africa today, we still see violence due to political differences. Violence against women and children. Our violent crimes are amongst the highest in the world. The Pillar Project was intentionally situated in communities where they would be most effective. It is also within these communities that some of the most influential ideologues foster their thinking. KwaZulu-Natal is, as a matter of fact, responsible for generating the ideas for peaceful resistance that led to the liberation of many people around the world. There is no doubt that the amalgamation of such varieties of people influenced the great minds that came out of KZN. Mahatma Gandhi was one such individual whose worldview formed under the huge differences in social conditions at the time.
When he came here and saw the conditions in this country, he began to identify with the common people, with the masses. He began to think about how can society become more egalitarian, because he was very concerned about the way society was divided, particularly in South Africa. He also, in South Africa, studied the scriptures. He studied Hinduism, he studied Christianity, he studied Islam. For him, there was a unity in religions. What he promoted was an interfaith culture, that nobody needed to change their religion in order to attain what they wanted to attain in life. You could do it through your own religion. You don't have to convert to another religion. The most important legacy of Gandhiji was the non-violent method of protest that he brought to this country and for the world.
The Gandhian notion of peaceful resistance played a major role in 20th century uprisings, from the shores of South Africa to the uprisings of Martin Luther King in the States. It no doubt inspired the likes of Mandela and Luthuli, who led the resistance in South Africa through key periods. The Salt March is an example of how peaceful resistance overcame colonial imperialism. These values are mirrored in our own Freedom Charter and protected in our Constitution.
We are also commemorating the 50th anniversary of the award of the Nobel Peace Prize to Chief Albert Luthuli, but you also know there's a whole monument in the house of Luthuli where you've got a statue, you've got even in Stenga you've got this, which are actually very, very important markers of the important route we have come through. There's a whole development of Inanda route wherein, on the one side we're redeveloping the Mahatma Gandhi settlement. We're also developing the John Dube settlement. We're also developing the other Christian side, which is the Shembe Church. We've put up monuments there which were marking the 100 years of the evolution of that church. And these together are also very important for people to understand all the contributions that have gone into forming the South African community that we know today, but particularly looking at what has happened in the province of KwaZulu-Natal.
peace pillars developing and appearing all around the KwaZulu-Natal province, it was only a matter of time until our government realized the importance and value of this project. That is why, on the 16th of April, dignitaries from the highest levels of government and community sectors gathered to show their support for the initiative. It is a testament to the importance that is given to the idea of peace, tolerance and Ubuntu that the Premier, representatives of the IEC and members of Cabinet made the trip to Pietermaritzburg to show their support. On the 16th of April this year, key members of government, civil and religious society joined Mr. Ramlutchman in Pietermaritzburg to unveil the 7th such peace pillar in KwaZulu-Natal. The event featured the Premier of KZN, who unveiled the pillar. Zweli Mkhize's support for the project is mirrored in his own ideas for a Heroes Acre that is to be set up in commemoration to the 20,000 who lost their lives in the 80s and early 90s, as well as the broader struggle by all the inhabitants of KZN. There is in Mr. Ramlutchman's initiative a definite synchronicity with the move of local government to ensure that tolerance and understanding are key values instilled within all. Not only were key members of government present for the unveiling, but representatives of religious institutions made a firm statement of support by assembling en masse at the event.
And what's particularly impressive about that particular monument is the fact that many of the religious leaders actually signed, somehow made their mark on that monument, which to me is a very clear message of the attempts of religious leaders to ensure peace in Durban and KwaZulu-Natal and important cities of the like of Pietermaritzburg.
And therefore, if a peace initiative like this one takes place, it needs to be supported by all of us.
As a commemoration to the effortless work done by the peoples of KwaZulu-Natal, Peace Pillar Awards were handed out to the dignitaries who attended the event. These statuettes, miniatures of the Peace Pillar, are going to be awarded at all successive pillar unveilings as a way to thank those individuals in our country who, through social development projects, are furthering the cause of the upliftment of needy communities in South Africa.
Well, I'm very happy that the government has partnered with me to unveil this peace pillar, and it shows commitment from various sectors of government, having the national ministers and the provincial government being on board.
Well, the reality is it's an honor for us to have the peace pillar. We put it in a fairly prominent place, as you can see. I did not know Mr. Ramlutchman a year ago, but he came to my office and introduced himself. Said what it was about, and asked for permission to erect a pillar. We then went through a process to decide where, and I think we found a very good spot for it. It's visible, it's in a nice setting, and I hope people go past it and read it.
Obviously those peace pillars become monuments in themselves, and they're then protected under MAFA's laws. So I think it's a hugely, although fairly low profile, but I think it has great significance, and particularly in our times, having come through so much violence in the past, to focus on peace like that, and particularly if he does it out of his own pocket, I think it's very noble.
These kinds of symbols are important as reminders for our children and all the generations to come of a path they should avoid, and of a path that is part of our history that's molded us into a country that we are.
It's really a very noble cause that he's pursuing in promoting peace, you know, and carrying on with the work of Swami.
The efforts to establish these monuments, these peace pillars, will certainly add to KwaZulu-Natal and Durban's inventory of important heritage. And monuments, as you know, is certainly an important element of heritage.
It's about a philosophy that will live long beyond all our different views and dreams. It's a philosophy that all our children and all our people must be able to support.
So the work that is actually being done around that, it is actually complementing the initiatives that we already have started doing, but also making sure that the story is told in many other different ways.
We need to make sure that we build this reconciliation, peace and prosperity of our people. We must actually project this non-racialism, that we are all human beings. South Africa belongs to all of us who live in it, black and white.
We have come from a long way, but we are at a point here where we are now forming this rainbow nation, and it's important for the coming generations to always understand that everybody's got a place in this country, but also they need to understand that how we came to be the nation that we are today. It will help to foster a lot of tolerance, political tolerance, tolerance for different cultures, for tolerance for different political views and thinking.
So living in diverse rainbow nation with many religions, cultures and rituals, it is imperative that we learn to respect others and their beliefs. We need to remember that charity begins at home, in our communities and in our churches.
With government support, I'm sure we'll see many more peace pillars in all parts of the country. We all remember those days when our democracy was young and violence was part and parcel of elections. Well, we've come a long way since then. It is initiatives like the Peace Pillar Project that keep reminding us that we should not let go of these ideas.
The previous leader, Swami Shahadananda, who was the main spiritual leader in this movement, was very strong in supporting community effort, was supporting the construction of schools, the construction of clinics, the construction of sites of worship for Christians or non-Hindu sites, as it were.
Swami Sahajananda's greatness was personified in his humility. His great work demonstrated that service is one of the greatest honor human beings can pay to other human beings. In Swami, we've got the combination of the hatred of squalor and poverty and the love of the people combined in one person.
Swami Sahajananda began his life as Srinivasa Naidu in the Midlands of KwaZulu-Natal. His constant yearning for a spiritual base was inflamed when he read a book on Karma Yoga by Swami Sivananda, who at the time was founder and global leader of the Divine Life Society in India. The notion of giving for spiritual reward led Sahajananda to form a branch of the Divine Life Society in South Africa, and under his leadership went on to build more than 300 projects for the province of KwaZulu-Natal, including schools, creches, clinics, social centers and media rooms. He is without doubt an African icon and a South African saint to the thousands of lives he has touched.
We've been indeed blessed to have met the late Swami. I truly believe that Swami Sahajananda was indeed one of the greatest South Africans to have ever been born. I'm so pleased that I live in times before he passed away, because I've learned something from him. It's a pity you cannot teach or you cannot preach your word and being listened by everybody. Some of them, they seem not to understand that you have been brought by God during that period. We need peace in this country. We need peace within all different religions, and we need to respect them.
We are part of a historic occasion to honor the memory of His Holiness who in life was one of the most outstanding citizens of the country. The Sivananda Peace Pillar declares Swami Sajananda one of the greatest South African spiritual leaders of South Africa.
Ishwar Ramlutchman's Peace Pillar is an insight into a man who, by virtue of his faith, has dedicated his life to selfless action. With the assistance of corporate social development schemes, Ramlutchman gets involved by realizing and assessing who should be a beneficiary to his projects. An example is Mzinga's resident Robert Nkosi, whose home burned down due to a faulty electrical wiring. Ramlutchman continues the work of Swami Sajananda in South Africa. His spiritual motivation to humanitarian and philanthropic work is an ongoing project that includes the Peace Pillar initiative. It is common to find food hampers, toys and books in Ramlutchman's car as he traverses the province of KwaZulu-Natal, building temples, schools, civic centers and houses. This work is done seemingly without the requirement of acknowledgement and is inspired only by the fact that such deeds elevate oneself beyond the mundane.
By this example today, we are reminded that greatness comes from receiving and from giving. Greatness can come from all of us if we thrive enough to make others achieve their own greatness. In providing the infrastructure necessary for others to survive and prosper, with this project creates the space for others to move towards their own greatness.
The issue of tolerance and peace needs to be preached in this whole country. There's been a huge contribution from the churches, there's been a huge contribution from the different religious communities, and all of this together we believe is very, very important.
I think in 16 years, given the legacy we inherited from apartheid, we've made enormous strides. We've managed to get clean water, which is an essential for life, to many more people that had water pre-1994. We built an enormous spirit amongst our people for dealing with multiculturalism. But all of these things we can't take for granted.
The issue of non-racialism really becomes part of the grounding that we've come from as the African National Congress, and we would say it's a very important and a lasting value that we must share with all South Africans, because that's the direction the country must take.
This becomes a necessity when we all realize that without peace, our country cannot grow. Without peace, our people cannot prosper.
There should be more action than talking.
We've got the people, we've got the pride, and we've got the most beautiful place to do it in. So, yeah, peace is coming.
I think we're not there yet in terms of peace, but yeah, we're getting there.
So I'm really hoping that we live in this happy environment as one, so we can all get to know each other's cultures, religion.
We need responsible political leadership in this country that understands that this is a fragile country that has had institutionalized apartheid, and we're trying to build a nation, and everybody must act in accordance with that intention to build a nation.
It's about going to communities and making people feel like they are part of this big society. It's about the basics that people need to have, because unless people understand who they are, their roles, it's going to be very difficult to talk about peace that they do not have. So peace starts from within.
I think in a province which was raptured by violence, I think that one cannot overestimate the value of these pillars.
But we need to ensure also that everybody has a kind of collective will to deal with nation building, so that we can build a nation going forward and not try to, divide a nation going forward.
As our state president said, together we could do more. I think that is a big statement for our country, and without the coming together of all of us, we cannot achieve what we want to achieve. And I think if all of us can really promote this, we could really uplift humanity in the sense of moving towards the spirit of Ubuntu and the coming together of all nations as one nation in promoting humanity.
We can create a beautiful world, and we are working towards it. We will create it.
This has been a truly inspiring journey for me. I've traveled to the many locations where these peace pillars have been erected, and I've come to realize that they truly do make a difference in communities. There's a feeling of pride and positive energy in people that we spoke to in making this documentary. In Ubuntu, we imagine a group of people sitting under a big tree, conversing, talking, discussing, arguing and ululating together. It is this spirit that I feel around these icons. It is the amazement of having an effigy to, at the same time, our similarities and our differences.
For all South Africa, peace.
Peace in South Africa.
Peace in South Africa.
Peace for South Africa. Peace for South Africa.
Peace in South Africa.
Peace
for South Africa.
My monument to peace would be a monument of Nat Nakasa, a journalist from this province who is so forgotten, but who really started it all, who put his life out there, risked his life, eventually was shipped off to America in exile and died. I think he needs to be recognized, but the monument that we have for Nat Nakasa will send out a very clear and strong message that unless media and journalists continue to be vigilant, we will not have a healthy democracy.
I would attempt to align that to some of the fascinating personalities that Durban and KwaZulu-Natal have been home to. Individuals of the like of Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi and Albert Lutuli. All three of those individuals are perhaps the most important icons of peace that have ever existed. And I would certainly try to align a monument of this nature to powerful personalities of the nature of those three individuals.
My monument to peace would be education, properly designed, planned, and provided for the young people of today.
And if we can sort of like, or I can make sure that everyone's got a decent housing, and they every day they go to sleep in a decent place. That is just the minimum, you know, someone having a dignified place to sleep and sort of wake up. And I think everything else after that, it sort of like falls into place from there. I think it all starts there.
I see myself as a person who must serve our people with my best of my ability. So this is what I just want to project during these times.
My monument to peace would be a fund that allows young people, especially disadvantaged people, to understand and participate in peace processes, negotiations, facilitations all over our country. I think there's too much conflict in our country, and we need to train people to tackle the issue of peace.
My monument to peace would be how each and every one of us would conduct ourselves in a manner that makes the other person feel that they are respected, they are acknowledged, and that there is peace, tolerance across everyone. So for me, the best monument is what we can engrave in the heart of each and every South African.
Personally, I would say that when all of us became South Africans, that would be my monument to peace.
My monument to peace would be no different from Ishwar's monument to peace. I think, everybody who calls themselves human, if you're a human being on the planet Earth, your monument to peace would be no different from Ishwar's pillar.
So what would your monument to peace look like? A small idea you begin and build can inspire and uplift many people around you. So go ahead, make it happen.